So in this video, we're just going to be taking a look at how to add some responsive navigation buttons to this responsive image slider. This video builds off of a previous video I did where we actually built the responsive slider. We won't be going over any of that code in this video, just the buttons. And so we have the full width of the window. We size down and the buttons remained sized relative to the carousel. The slider, we go down to negative or past 768 pixels. We switch to a full screen slider. The buttons resize down to this and they reposition to be on the image. We go back up. The buttons enlarge and they're slightly off the image. It's all that in this video. If this interests you at all, stick around. Let's begin. Alright, so let's begin by positioning a flex box in the center of the viewport. And we're going to use the flex box to position the buttons. It's a little, I wouldn't say it's tricky, but it's a workaround to doing this. You'll see when we do it. Let me actually show you guys what the viewport looks like. So let me add a background color. Background. Yeah, should be one word. Background. There we go. Color. Color. Let's make red. So this is the viewport right here. The image is here. The image doesn't fit the whole viewport, but the viewport is here. So we're going to center a flex box in the middle of the viewport. We're going to put two buttons in that flex box. We're going to stretch the flex box out. And so the button will show up on the left and the button will show up on the right. So to do that, let's add two more stylings to the style object. So we're going to need a button. We're going to say, let's do a background color of blue so we can see it. Let's do a width of 256. I don't think it needs to be in quotes, 256, and then we'll do a height of the same thing. Let's make these buttons round, so I'll do a radius, a border radius of, and we'll say 50%, and then that's good for the button. Let's make the button container, so it's going to be the flex box. So button container, let me scroll up a bit. So let's center it in the viewport. So we need a position of absolute. We'll do a top of 50%. We'll do a left of the same. We'll do a transform. Translate of negative 50% by negative 50%. Let's do a display of flex. Now there, we need a justify content. And we're going to do space between. This is how we're going to space or have one button on the left and one button on the right. We're going to use a flex box and then space between puts maximum space in between two elements or however many elements in the flex box. And we have two, so it's going to be on the left and the right. Again, you'll see it when we do it. So space between, we'll do it in align items of, that's going to be a center. And then let's do a Z index of 300. Looks good. Am I missing anything? No. So let's go up and add the flex box and the buttons, quote unquote buttons. So let's just comment this out. Let's add the container for the buttons. We're going to need a reference because we're going to have to do some responsive coding with it later. So we'll do a ref ID and we'll call this the button underscore container. It's equal to ref ID. Let's add the style. So style is equal to styles.button container. And let's add, looks good. Let's add the buttons now. So div, we'll do another ref ID because we need to make some responsive buttons. Not ref ID, excuse me, ref, and then do ref ID. Call this one the button underscore previous button. Previous, we'll add some style to it. So style is equal to styles.button. Should be just the button, right? Yeah, I have that. Dot button, and we need the on-click listener for the previous button, which is on-click equals this dot handle previous. There we go. Copy paste. This should be the next button. Next button handle next. Let's see what we got on the page. All right, so we have our buttons on the page. Currently 256 by 256. And when we resize the carousel, no matter what we do, it stays at 256. We haven't implemented the responsive stuff, but let me just show you how we're going to get the, let me just make these smaller just to start off. Let's do 125, 125, 125, and then do 125 save. There we go. So let me show you how we're going to space the buttons evenly between. All we're going to do is we're going to go here, and we want to wait for all of the images to load. So we're just going to do a window.add event listener. We're going to wait for the load, and then we're going to execute all the code here. So we can take all this and paste it here. And let's do some commenting. We'll just add it right here. We'll do what? Fix. We'll do set button container and button dimensions here. So to set the dimensions of the, let me turn it on so you guys can see. It's better if I do it visually like this. A little background color of orange. So that's the flex box in the center. We're going to stretch it out here relative to the viewport. And we already have the width of the viewport. It's the same as the width of the image. So we can just use this guy right here, this state variable, current image width. And of course, it's supposed to be responsive. So we have to copy this code right here. So when we dip the browser window below 768 or whatever you want to set it at, we're going to have one place to put the buttons, else we're going to have a different place to put the buttons. So let me just copy this right here. So yank this and paste this here. So we're going to say this dot, we're going to need the button container dot style dot width is equal to, and let's do it this way. And then let's set these guys custom. So if it's mobile dimensions under 768, what we're going to do is this. We're just going to say it's going to be a viewport width. So it's going to, you could think of it as a percentage of the width of the screen. So VW. What it's going to be is this dot state dot, where is it? Current image width as a percentage, which is the width of the viewport. And we're going to say minus 10. For the other one, we're going to do plus 10. And you'll see what that looks like in a second. Plus 10. There should be a semicolon. All right. So we hit F5. There we go. So that's plus 10. We could do plus, let me not do plus 10 to show you guys. Look, pay attention to the orange box. So as you can see, the flex box is, the width is exactly the same as the width of the viewport. We can just stretch it out. So it creates the illusion that the buttons are positioning themselves away from the carousel. So when we turn off the orange color for the final product, it's just going to look like this. So let me put the buttons back to 10. Turn this back on. So let's go plus 10. Let me show you the mobile dimensions. So let's resize the window down here, hit F5, and it's going to be right here. Let me go back up. And the reason why it's not scaling properly is because we haven't coded for the resize event. As you can see, there's more and more space allocating here. Again, we'll fix all this in the video. All right, so we stretched we positioned where the buttons are. Let's do, I don't know if I want to do the buttons yet. How about this? Let's make that responsive. So all you have to do is copy this code and put it in here. We'll just put it down here. So now when we resize the window, it's going to do that same calculation on the fly. In order to do that, we need this guy here. So this guy's fixed. This dot state current image width. This one gets recalculated right here. So we need to take this one. So we'll delete this up into current image, and now it should be calculating on the fly. So save, go back. There you go. So that's width plus 10. That's width plus 10. No matter where we go, it's always at basically the end of the viewport. We go down low, and there we go. It's pushed in minus 10. So let's take care of the resizing of the buttons. So to do that, we're just going to do two things. We're going to calculate the button width as a percentage. So same thing we did up here. We get the viewport style, the current image width as a percentage. We're just going to do that with the button width. So button width as percentage is going to be equal to something. And then we'll have the button height as a percentage. Height as percentage. And of course, we want to make this responsive. So we copy this code right here. Copy, paste, we'll paste it here as well. So if we're in mobile dimensions, let's just say we want to fix the button width as a percentage. Let's go 5. We're just doing a number here. We're going to do the whole VW stuff later. So it's going to be 5, and then it's going to be something else. I'll just do this so I don't get the error messages. This is also going to be 5, and then something else. All right, so let's code that something else. What are we going to do? So let's make the button width relative to the viewport size. So no matter where we go in this carousel, how thin or how wide it is, it's always going to be relative to the viewport. So to do that, we're just going to say this. We're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to do, what's it going to be? This dot, not even this, styles dot button dot width. We're going to divide by the viewport. So this dot viewport dot get bounding rect. There you go. Dot width, that gives us a decimal number. We want to do percentages. So we're going to say times 100. And we want to grow or shrink this depending on what happens. You'll see why in a second. So there we go. And then the height is not the same calculation as the width. The height is always going to be relative to the width, so we can maintain the, you could say the aspect ratio of the image, or else the image stretches, excuse me. So we just copy this, paste this here, and it's not relative to the viewport. It's relative to the width of the button. So styles dot button dot width, and this should be height. And we want a percentage of the button width as a percentage. That should convert it to percentages. So let's use those. Let's go with the, I made references to these buttons, right? This dot button previous, perfect. This dot button previous dot style dot width is equal to, it's going to be some sort of viewport width. I need 4. This should be, let's go with next dot width. Next dot width, and let's go previous style dot height, and the next dot height. Let's go next here, separation here. So the width is just going to be the width we calculated. Width, same thing with the next button. And then the height we calculated. Button height as percentage. Same thing here, button height as a percentage. Let's save, let's see what we got. What's going on here? Did I not do this properly? This dot, oh, I never made the equation here, excuse me. Ref underscore ID here, as well as ref underscore ID right here, ref underscore ID. Save, go back. As you can see, the button's enlarged, and that's because we're taking, where is it? Whatever 125 divided by the viewport is as a percentage. To tweak that, we just use these values right here. And we only need to tweak the width because the height right here is relative to the width. And this width is relative to the viewport. It's a bit confusing, but just go over it and you'll get it. So instead of this, whatever this is, let's just do 30% of that. So let's just do 0.30. Save, go back. And that looks okay. Let's turn off the orange stuff now because we're almost done. Delete this, save. And just like we copied that code for the viewport in order to make it responsive, we copied it in the resize listener. All we have to do is copy this and paste it right here. And we don't need the let because we defined it outside of the arrow function. Save, go back. And let's test this. Let's resize. There you go. So the buttons are staying in terms of their position relative to the viewport. Their size is staying the same relative to the viewport. And we get the buttons there. We made the size really small, huh? Let's do a size of, let's go 10 for the mobile. Maybe it's better. Scroll out, and we get the size of relative to the viewport, that 100% times 30% of the thing. So let's turn off the viewports red so we can get a better representation of what we're doing here. Let's switch these divs up with images. So I downloaded some images from, I think it's favicon.com. You can put whatever image you want in there or style your own div or whatever. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste this here. Comment this out. Let's do an image. Image needs a source. The source is going to be, I think I did previous.png. We'll see. It should need an alt as well. Alt is going to be equal to previous. We'll just do prev. It's also going to be an image with a source. And this was the next button. So slash next.png. I need an alt of next, and images don't need an ending div. They're self-closing. So there we go. And there we go. Let's see what we get. And let's turn off that blue. Where's that blue? Right here. And we don't need the border radius. All right, there we go. Of course, they're coded to be functional. They just took the functionality of the actual HTML button element. So we scroll up, size up, we size down, and they should be 100 minus 90, so in there, perfect. And their size is 10. You could say 10 viewport width, 10% of the width of the viewport. Actually, not even the viewport, the window. Anyways, to the gentleman who asked, how do we code for responsive buttons? I hope this answers your question. So leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and I will see you guys in the next one.